Hey guys, our silly Woomy festival happened. Wasn't that fun? Well, not looking forward to the comments section of this video. Being the third installment of the Splatoon series, Splatoon 3's Splatfests now have 3 teams. Just like how Splatoon 2's had 2 teams, Splatoon 1 Splatfests only had 1 team, and it will take us until Splatoon 100 before we finally get the Battle Royale game we've all been clamoring for. The way Nintendo has decided to execute this is by combining traditional match-made Turf War matches with a new game mode called the Tricolor Turf War, an asymmetric game design that we've been thinking about and unpacking since it premiered in the Splatfest premiere. It is my personal opinion that asymmetric game design is way cooler than it's given credit for, and I feel like there's someone at Nintendo who loves it and is itching to make more of it, because we have some really unique Nintendo games, like the 1v3 Mario Party minigames and a bunch of Wii U titles using the gamepad, and, showing my age a little here, the games you could play with that Game Boy Advance GameCube link cable. Pac-Man Versus is the most fun I've ever had playing a Pac-Man game, by the way. That game deserved far better than it seemed to have gotten. Now, it's basically impossible to balance these kinds of games. The two sides are fundamentally different, apples to oranges. One side will inevitably have some kind of advantage, no matter how carefully tuned they are. But that's fine, because they're fun. If you go in with the right mindset and both sides can win at least some of the time, it doesn't matter that much. I would love a Mario game where one player controls Mario and the second player can switch to controlling any one of the enemies on the map. So Mario has his whole moveset, but has to contend with the smartest army of Goombas of all time. Nintendo, you can have that one for free. To get us back on track, though, let's talk about this specific instance of asymmetric design. Here's how the scoring breaks down in Splatoon 3 Splatfests. Splatfests are scored by giving a certain number of points to teams for any of a list of 4 achievements. 10 points are given to the team that earns the most conch shells. Shells are earned by choosing a Splatfest team, and also by leveling up one's catalog before the Splatfest starts, which is basically a measure of how long players on that team play the game. Generally, you'd expect these 10 points to go to the most popular team, though Team Fun was a notable outlier. It's kind of astonishing to me, actually, that they won the sneak peek, despite Team Gear having fully 58% of the players in the Splatfest. I guess it goes to show that just because you're there for fun doesn't mean that you're necessarily playing casually. Despite conch shells being partially impacted by a team's popularity, popularity is also a category worth 10 more points in the final scoring. While Team Fun grinded their way to the sneak peek points, Team Gear clinched these 10 points with their sheer numbers. 10 points are awarded to the team with the most clout earned in the Splatfest Pro mode, the sort of solo queue mode that assigns players a Glico power for their performance. Interestingly, the Splatfest Open mode gives more points than any of the other 3 categories, at 15. This may be Nintendo quietly encouraging people to play together in groups of friends, as the Open mode both allows teams to group up and coordinate, and has an outsized impact on the results. What this also accomplishes, though, is preventing a tie for first place at the end of the fest. Now we'll start analyzing the game mode for its balance. Players choosing their teams has at least an influence on 20 of the available 45 points, so even just choosing your team is very important. That said, this is a process I'll treat as random for the purposes of this video. If the question were something like a logic problem, where there actually is a correct answer and the players who choose it are more likely to be better at critical thinking, maybe team selection could actually influence the outcome of other parts of the Splatfest by putting players with better critical thinking skills all on one side. But the best Splatfest themes are generally pretty opinion-based, and the ways the idols talk about them even model and encourage interpreting the questions in different ways to get fun, silly debates going among friends. Rock, Paper, Scissors is a great example, basically a 33-33-33 split like you'd expect, sorting everyone randomly. The question itself might have had an impact on the most recent fest based on the skewed popularity vote, but I'm not going to spend too long explaining why my Splatfest team choice was the correct one, because we already proved that by winning. Given randomized teams, the Turf War matches in both Splatfest Open and Splatfest Pro should be treated as random as well, a coin flip between the 2 participating teams. There is still matchmaking going on in Turf War matches, even if you're not seeing a power level or player ranks. On the Smurf accounts I used for YouTube content in Splatoon 2, there was always a process of leveling them in Turf War before I could play ranked modes. The first game would be played against other new players, barely anyone above a single-digit level, but after just 3 rounds, I was already being put in matches with prestiged players who were playing at pretty much a competitive level. Well, what if, you might ask, more of the competitive community decides to join a particular team? And to that, I would like to remind you that the competitive community is maybe 2 or 3% of the Splatoon community. Yes, they play more, but there were 30 B-rank players for every X-rank player in Splatoon 2. If B-rank players play an average of 1 hour a day during the Splatfest, for a total of 2 hours of playtime, I and every other X-rank player would have to play a crazy 15-hour marathon on both days, taking up my whole weekend to just sleep, speedrun my meals and bathroom breaks, and lobby up for Turf War matches over and over again to have the same impact as they do. And that's just the B-rank players. And even if I'm winning more than they are, they're still getting some clout for losing, so they're still at least making some progress. Furthermore, competitive players generally play less, if anything, during Splatfests. We don't play Turf War competitively nearly as much as we play the other ranked modes, and during a Splatfest, the only way to play the other game modes is in private battles. We also can't rank up in solo queue during that time. Unless we have a competitive team and a team of scrim partners, we'll often choose to play till we hit ruler, so we get the maximum number of sea snails, and then stop and do something else for the weekend. I went out for a walk with a family member on Sunday night during the Splatfest, and it was lovely. Ideally, I would want to still have access to at least something like Anarchy Open during Splatfests. I think Nintendo wants to create the sense that everyone's coming together to play the same thing, but since there's no way to really see or interact with the massive crowd of people like you'd have at an in-person gathering like a concert, it doesn't feel any different to have us all playing specifically Turf War matches. We're all still here playing Splatoon, and the fact we're doing that in greater numbers than usual is invisible to players outside of social media. But that's yet another tangent. I'm only really talking about it to address approximately 25 YouTube comments before y'all write them. We're here to talk about balance. So we're assuming that our teams are evenly matched. The question is well chosen, so they're pretty evenly sized, and therefore the Turf War matches are basically a coin flip. That would mean that Tricolor Turf Wars, being asymmetric, have the potential to fundamentally unbalance a Splatfest, since if the game mode grants one specific team an advantage or disadvantage with a large enough population of players entering the mode, a large enough sample size, that advantage will be almost certain to make the difference. One reasonable challenge to this theory is that 10x, 100x, and 333x battles cannot occur in Tricolor matches, so even a slightly uneven split of those battles in the regular Turf War matches will have a much greater impact than Tricolor matches will. But for now, I'll consider Turf War matches to be coin flips and treat them like they're even. The last couple fests do seem to show that Tricolor may be having an impact. Big Man and his legion of devout followers have had the lead at halftime in both the Splatfest premiere and the first Splatfest post-launch, and that team has lost on both occasions. 2 Splatfests isn't much to establish a pattern, but if we investigate how Tricolor Turf War breaks down, I think we can see a likely cause. Tricolor Turf Wars only start in the second half of the Splatfest, likely a mechanic to encourage players who already hit ruler in day 1 to come back to something new in day 2. The team that's winning in terms of overall clout score at halftime fields 4 players for Tricolor matches, while the other 2 teams field 2 players apiece. The team of 4 starts with spawn points closer to the middle of the map, while the teams of 2 start in the traditional spawn points for a typical competitive mode. This means that, while the teams of 2 take longer to reach the objective in the center of the map out of spawn, and have fewer super jump points to get them back in there safely, the team of 4 spends the whole match fighting a 2-front war. The big disadvantage for the team of 4, in my view, is the way the objective plays. The teams of 2 have access to the Ultra Signal, which they can activate by standing on it in the middle of the map for a few seconds. This animation leaves the capturing player vulnerable, and shooting them does prevent the signal from being capped, but even if the player is splatted, progress they make goes toward a second attempt to cap the signal, often leading to a situation where a player gets most of the way through capping the signal, and then can do so on the second attempt fast enough that it's unreactable. Capping the Ultra Signal summons a sprinkler of doom onto the capturing team's side of the map.
What is this?
These adorable little eldritch horrors skew the results of the match very firmly in the favor of the teams of 2. and a second Ultra Signal cap for the same team, which puts a second Sprinkler of Doom in the middle of the map, all but guarantees their success unless they wipe in the last 15 seconds. The teams of 2 can also score one Ultra Signal cap each, in which case a single Sprinkler ends up in each team's base in their respective colors, probably dooming the team of 4, but making it a much closer contest between the teams of 2. One big problem, in my view, for the team of 4 is that they have no equivalent to the Ultra Signal. There isn't a way that they can suddenly gain a massive advantage that lasts for the rest of the game. Depending on the map, they often have a slight advantage in terms of coordination and winning fights, but if they slip up enough to allow an opposing player to access the middle of the map for just a few seconds, their chances of winning are immediately and permanently reduced dramatically. If either of the teams of 2 win the Tricolor Turf War, both teams of 2 get a victory screen. This is a little deceptive. The two teams don't get equal rewards. Each player on the team that actually had the most painted gets 6,000 clout plus the amount they painted, while the other team of 2 only gets 5,000 clout plus paint. Still, considering that the other team of 2 could have been in 3rd place and gotten carried, they can't complain too much about having 1,000 less. The team of 4 gain 3,000 clout for winning, plus the amount they painted. Now, bear in mind, that's 3,000 clout per player, and they have double the number of players. But that still doesn't equalize the scoring. Team Fun needs to win the game, beating 2 other teams to get any points. If Team Gear or Team Grub take 2nd or 3rd, but the other team of 2 wins, they still get 5/6 of the reward they would get for winning. Team Fun simply doesn't get any points that way. So the existence of the Ultra Signal, an advantage Team Fun can't use, makes it less likely they'll win, which they need to do to score at all, in a game where the other teams can have a 50% chance to score almost the same as the winning team, even if they take last place. That would already be a disadvantage for Team Fun, but what's worse is that Ultra Signal caps grant the team that gets them 2,500 more clout points, times 2 players. Team Fun has no access to these points. The best they can do is deny the other team access to that advantage, which again means they can't allow any opposing player to stand in mid for a few seconds for the entire match. If Team Fun allows both Ultra Signals to be capped, that gives away 5,000 clout points times 2 players, which is as much as the bonus given for a 2nd place finish for the team of 2, in addition to the points that they will likely gain for what is now a much more likely victory. Totaling it all up, Team Fun gains 12,000 for winning, 0 for 2nd, 0 for 3rd, and has no other sources of scoring. But a winning Team Grub or Team Gear team gain 12,000, 17,000, or 22,000 depending on Ultra Signal caps, and a 2nd or 3rd place team of 2 can gain 10,000, 15,000, or 20,000 if the other team of 2 wins instead. If we rate the two teams as being equally likely to win, Team Fun is at a massive point disadvantage. Here's some work I did to prove this. If you believe me and just want to skip ahead of the nerd stuff, here's a timestamp. What I've made here is a simulation of how many points for clout each team would win based on how many times they win out of 1,000 matches. So the 1,000 matches are all in column A. They go all the way down to 1,000. And a 1 is going to stand for a win for Team Fun, a 2 is a win for Team Grub, and a 3 is a win for Team Gear. So here, in these 3 cells, we have a formula that's going in and looking for, in the case of Team Fun, 1s, in the case of Team Grub, 2s, and in the case of Team Gear, 3s, and it's just counting up how many of those there are. So in this current data set, Team Fun has won more matches than any of the other teams. I can randomize this by hitting refresh and get new data every time that I do that, and it'll just redo all of the calculations every time I do. But let's take a look at this data set right now. So Team Fun has won more matches, and here is how its clout is getting calculated based on this. Team Fun's is very simple, because if it takes 1st place, then it gets 12,000 clout, 3,000 per player, and there are 4 players. And if it takes 2nd or 3rd, you get no points at all. So it's just this cell times 12,000, and that gives you this number. Team Grub and Team Gear are a little more complicated, and I'll go through each term. First of all, if one of these two teams wins, then they get 12,000 clout because you get 6,000 per player and there are 2 players. On top of that, if the other team of 2 wins, so in the case of Team Grub, if Team Gear wins a match, then Team Grub, for being on the winning side of 4, get 10,000, 5,000 per player. And on top of that, whether Team Fun wins, Team Grub wins, or Team Gear wins, you have the opportunity to get clout from capping the Ultra Signal. I've decided to just weight the average so that it is equally likely that you get 0 caps, 1 cap, or 2 caps of the Ultra Signal as either team. So in this case, there's going to be a 1/3 chance that you get 5,000 clout, 2,500 per player. And there's going to be a 1/3 chance that you get 10,000 clout, 5,000 per player. There's also a 1/3 chance that you get 0 clout, but I haven't added that term because that adds nothing to the number, and so we can just exclude it. So that's where this whole formula comes from. And if I don't screw it up here, you can see that even with Team Fun winning more matches, Team Grub and Team Gear both have 3 times more clout than Team Fun does. And that'll be the same no matter how many times I re-randomize it. Here it's worse because Team Grub just won an outsized number of matches. But we can just keep doing this, and every time it's going to be about a 3-to-1 comparison between the teams of 2 and the team of 4. So even if Team Fun has an advantage, it needs to be about 3 times as likely to win to earn an equivalent number of points. My experience does not back that up. Teams of 4, if anything, seem less likely to win based on the games that I've played on it from both sides. I had a second account on Team Scissors during the premiere. So the team of 4 should always have a significant disadvantage in clout earned from Tricolor Turf Wars. Remember, Tricolor Turf Wars count towards the Splatfest Open category, worth 15 to every other category's 10. Being on the team of 4 means that you need to win at least 2 of the 3 remaining categories, so Popularity, Sneak Peek, and Splatfest Pro matches. If you only win 2 of them, you still need the team that wins Splatfest Open to not be the same one that wins the last remaining category. In its current state, if you're really determined to win the Splatfest and that's what matters to you, the optimal play would be for the team that's winning at halftime to just play Splatfest Pro matches and never lobby up into Splatfest Open. The popularity vote and the sneak peek are already done, so there's nothing more to do about them, but if you can deny the other 2 teams the unbalanced Tricolor Turf War matches while also locking in the Pro category so the winning Open team can't have it, you have the best chance possible of it all adding up. Team Fun did come very close to making it work this time. Now, do I actually recommend min-maxing for the Splatfest win like this? Absolutely not. It's kind of fun having this 2 teams ganging up on the winning one dynamic, sort of like a 3-player game of Smash Bros, where someone has just called everyone's attention to the fact that one player has all their stocks still. Tricolor Turf Wars may be unbalanced, but it's crazy fun to play a 2v6 or to scramble to defend in a constant 2-front war. The only difference in who wins and loses at the Splatfest is a maximum of 3 Super Sea Snails, and we don't even need those to increase the number of slots on our gear anymore. Analyzing the game balance is fun for its own sake, as a kind of puzzle. It can be fun to take its competitive design to its logical extreme and see how much that breaks it away from the developer's intended play, much like how speedrunners and competitive players do. It can also be fun to pretend to be a general leading an army of Team Gear troops, even though I know darn well there are millions of people playing, and the tiny fraction of that group that actually saw my tweet probably just laughed at it and left a like and played how they wanted to play anyway. But at the end of the day, Splatfests should bring us all together for some fun competition instead of causing us to get our egos involved when we lose and make us go on Twitter rants. The worst thing that can come of this conversation about game balance is that we lose access to this unique new game mode. And that kind of happened after the Splatfest premiere. I'm using a lot of footage in this video from the Splatfest premiere, and that's because I got to play 2 matches total of Tricolor Turf War in the Gear Grub Fun Splatfest. Instead of trying to balance Tricolor Turf Wars just by sidelining them, I'd like to see Splatfests reworked to reward the team that got first place at halftime. For people who would like to try and win the Splatfest, there needs to be more of an incentive to play the game and try to get first place on day one, because any time spent making your team more likely to be the team of 4 feels selfish, like you're enjoying the game at your team's expense. More than anything else, I want Splatfests to be a fun, non-divisive way to engage a larger audience with Splatoon 3. Playing casually and playing competitively are both fine, and both can be fun and engaging. But when a Splatfest happens, we're playing however we want to play the game together. It's that sense of community that I think makes these things so cool and worth being a part of in the first place. And it is only in service of that I think any changes to the structure of Splatfests should be considered.